Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming out. We're delighted to be here. I want to thank 4 Points Development for hosting us today. This site will bring retail, office space. It'll be a mixed-use development, and isn't it great to see the continuing development right here on the east end of the city in Ward 8, ladies and gentlemen? There are a lot of members of our administration who are joining us here today, and one of those is Michael Kelly, who is our Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development. And you will hear from Michael shortly. I think we all know that the demand for high-quality, affordable housing in the District of Columbia, not just here, everywhere, continues to grow tremendously. And with the changing landscape of the District of Columbia, it's accelerating. And we are trying to be as responsive as we can to that. I think everybody knows that our population in the city is increasing by 1,200 people net a month, which is probably 1,500 to 1,600 people when you factor in the people who actually leave the city. And it makes the need for affordable housing even more pronounced than it otherwise would be. And it is, and I think you all know, those who work closely with us, that it has been and continues to be a top priority for us. We've tried to remain steadfast in our commitment to having an economically inclusive city here in the District of Columbia. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to be here today, because we know the economic challenges on this end of the city have been more pronounced than they have been in other parts of the city. It's one of the reasons why we've made the investments we have to try to be able to level the playing field to some extent, substantially. We've worked hard to map out and leverage all the resources, mobilize all the resources, aggregate the resources, however you want to put it, that will allow us to increase the stock of affordable housing here in the city. So today, when you aggregate all of what we've invested now about $1.3 billion in affordable housing. We've used myriad tools, including the Housing Production Trust Fund, the low-income housing tax credits, tax-exempt bonds, and the resources of a host of agencies in the District of Columbia to be able to increase the stock of affordable housing. We've already completed 3,600 units, and there are another 2,800 units that are under construction at present. Let me give you just a quick breakdown. For those that are 30% and below, we've completed over 500 units of those of that housing, and another 400 are under construction, and an additional 1,800 are in the pipeline. For those that are 31 to 60% of the AMI, we've completed now 2,600 units, more than 1,800 are under construction, and there's 3,100 that are in the pipeline at this point. And then for those that are in the range of 61 to 80% of the AMI, we've completed 400 units. We have another 600 that are under construction, and about 400 in the pipeline. So in total, we have more than 5,400 in the pipeline, and these projects are slated to start over the next 24 months. They've already been teed up, I should say. And this puts us well ahead of the goal that we established. How many of you remember we established a goal in our report of 10,000 units? We're actually, I think, going to be able to exceed getting to 10,000 units by 2020. And in fact, we could be north of 12,000 units as a result of the work that is being done. So I want to take a moment to stop and thank everybody, which is pretty much everybody in this room, that has made a contribution to making this happen. And maybe we can exceed 12,000, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you all for what you're doing. And today we're adding to the pipeline with the announcement of our 2014 NOFA recipients. Nothing like money to bring people out, is it? Our Super NOFA, which is DHCD, is partnered with, I think, 5 other of our agencies. It's an effort to try to streamline, to bring about more collaboration and the coordination of these efforts is involved the Department of Health. I see Dr. Garcia is here. Dr. Garcia, we're glad you're here. The Department of Behavioral Health, and Steve Barron, I was at his conference this morning. He had about 400 or 500 people that were assembled at the convention center. Deputy Mayor Otero and I were there for a conference on behavioral health issues among children. And it was not to digress, but to digress. It was really wonderful to see so many people out, people in government and people in the private sector, focusing on how we increase and improve the outcomes for children. For those who follow this, one of the most interesting statistics is we used to have well north of around 250 children who we sent all over the country to be served. And because of the increased capacity here in the city, some of which is housing, of course, we've actually reduced that number from 250 down to 70 children now who are sent to other places to be served. And with the development that's going on in the Department of Behavioral Health, we'll actually be down to 0, and it won't be that far in the future. And that is an enormous accomplishment for the city. In addition, the Department of Behavioral Health, we have DHS, the Housing Finance Agency, and of course the Housing Authority. And Michael, you get the opportunity to reveal who the winners are. And the guys who get the grants will be very happy and will hug you. And the ones and the ones who don't will run you out of Southeast, okay? And your office is right down the street, right? Again, we could not have done what we've been able to do with aggregating these grant programs and getting the amount of housing moved forward that we have without the work of so many agencies and so many partners. Some will recall that in February of 2012, now over 2 years ago, I asked 32 housing professionals, a number of whom are in this room today, to come together and to help us create a blueprint, a pathway forward. And the mission, of course, was to be able to create and preserve affordable housing here in the District of Columbia. And it was really an extraordinary report that was produced. And we have tried to use that almost from day one. Some will recall that the State of the District message that came very soon after the release of that report, we committed to investing $100 million. And remember that, David? I'll never forget being at the library when they put on, the advocates, who are very good, put on a form and said, "Gray, you got to come up with $80 million. And I said, "I don't think we can do that." And you should have seen the faces at that point. I said, "No, we're not going to do $80 million. We'll announce a bigger number later." We announced $100 million, and actually we wound up investing $187 million that first year. And then this year's budget, and I'm glad the council approved that, adds another $100 million. That's all a part of our $1.3 billion investment that's being made in affordable housing in the city. And it's, of course, one of the reasons why we're here today, because this is an example of what's going to be done. 4 points development, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? 4 points development is developing homes, office, and retail. And a lot of this housing will be workforce housing. It will be for our teachers, because we've talked about being able to create more housing for teachers, for firefighters, and police officers to do the best we can to try to keep these folks in the city and a part of our community. It obviously helps them financially, but it also, I think, is a good thing for the city, because these public servants then are right in our own communities working with the families who they are living near the families that they work with every day. You know, I want to mention one other thing, and that is we've got another project coming up in just a few weeks that we're going to break ground on, and that is North Capitol Commons. That's actually going to provide housing for veterans. We've made a commitment to end homelessness among veterans in the city. I think we now have gotten, I don't know, 40 to 50% off the streets as best we can determine, and this housing will continue to contribute to getting the remainder, which we think is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 veterans who remain on the streets in the city. And it's unconscionable that someone goes off and fights for their country, especially in this city, you know, where we are so uniquely disenfranchised, and then comes back home to have to live on the streets of this city or the streets of other cities. So we're committed to being able to end that, and North Capitol Commons will help to contribute to that as well. So let me bring up Michael Kelly, our Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development, who's going to announce the recipients of the 2014 Supernova. Director Kelly, and you clear the path there, Deputy Mayor Miller, in case he has to be on a quick exit out of here. Please welcome Michael Kelly.
Good morning, everybody. It is so great to be among so many friends and colleagues and housers, folks that really get it, mission-driven at every level, nonprofit, for-profit community, to recognize the importance and the recognition that housing and the prosperity and health of the city begins in the homes of its people. So God bless you for being here today. And again, I get to do the drum roll. Before I report out on the 2000 DHCD Notice of Funding Availability awardees, I want to take a moment to applaud our mayor, Vincent C. Gray, for leading this unprecedented moment in the district, to be able to stand here today, and during his administration, more than $1 billion dedicated and invested to affordable housing in the district. Our mayor. Commendable, astonishing. I'd also like to recognize the leadership and downfield blocking, as I like to say, of our Deputy Mayor Jeff Miller and all the good work that DEMPED does, and to our sister agencies and the sister directors of those agencies and those senior staff. Thank you for being here today. In many cases, this is clearly a joint effort. I am representing you in the presentations today. It's an honor to join in today's celebration of building and preserving affordable housing as a basis for creating a just and economically inclusive, diverse, and vibrant city. I'm here today to announce the awardees from the 2014 Notice of Funding Availability, commonly referred to as the NOFA, which was released in April of 2014. This NOFA was the second time the Department of Housing and Community Development partnered with various housing agencies to leverage resources and assets to ensure that all demographics of district residents are reached. Through a memorandum of understanding, DHCD partnered with the Department of Behavioral Health, the Department of Human Services, the DC Housing Finance Agency, the Department of Health, and the DC Housing Authority. DHCD continues to coordinate and to commit the capital, operating, and support services funds for developing projects that create housing for low to moderate income residents and permanent supportive housing for people of special needs. This year, for the first time, this NOFA required that all project proposals set aside 5% of its proposed units for permanent supportive housing. This was considered a national best practice exercised by just a very few of our jurisdictions across the country, and we here were able to meet the goals and to try to hit the objectives set by the city's Interagency Council on Homelessness. It's also the first time that we've implemented a two-tier process for awarding. Tier 1 were the projects that have firmly secured their primary financing, received letters of commitment, and were given an expedited approval process. Tier 2 projects were those projects that met the fundamental threshold criteria, but did not necessarily have all their primary financing secured. Well, we received 23 proposals requesting more than $154 million in total assistance. That assistance through low-income housing tax credits, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Home Investment Partnership Program and the Community Development Block Grant Program, the Housing Production Trust Fund, the Department of Behavioral Health Capital, and Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, the HOPWA funds. 18 of those 23 proposals met threshold and were put through a very rigorous vetting and underwriting process by a board of 10 members from the Housing Production Trust Fund Advisory Board, the Interagency Council on Homelessness, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, and our partner agencies. All 18 proposals will receive conditional letters of commitment. These projects are projected to deal a total of 2,097 affordable housing units, and this is over twice as many units funded last year and almost 3 times as many funded in 2012. This is over twice as many units funded last year and almost 3 times funded in 2012. I just want to make sure you were following along on that one. These projects will receive $143,724,017 in Housing Protection Trust Fund dollars. To put this in context, in 2013, we awarded $87,923,093, which represented a 63% increase. And in 2012, we awarded $28,083,469, which represents a 412% increase in our commitment to affordable housing here in the district. Besides Housing Protection Trust funds, additional funding will include $2.8 million in 9% low-income housing tax credits, $1.3 million in Department of Human Service funding, $1.3 million in Department of Behavioral Health funding, and 246 vouchers from the Housing Authority. Again, this unprecedented commitment positions the district to exceed our mayor's 10 by 20 goal and will ensure that housing in the district remains attainable for the chronically homeless, for seniors, for families, and working class residents for years to come. So here we go. In your packets and on the signage, you will see a list of the 18 who have been awarded. I would like those 18 awardees to, if you're here today, please stand and be recognized. Congratulations. Benning Heights Apartments, the NHP Foundation, Capital Gateway Marketplace, A&R Development Corporation, Hope in a Home, Girard Street Senior Apartments, Girard Street Community Partners, LLC, The Grove at Parkside, CIGD Parkside 7, LLC, 2255 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, 4 Points, LLC, 4300 12th Street Southeast, Vesta Corporation, Brightwood Topa, Manna, Archwood Park, William C. Smith and Company, Atlantic Terrace and Gardens, Wind Development Company, Limited Partnership, Help, Walter Reed, some, N Street Village, Plaza West, Mission First DC and Golden Rule, South Capitol Multifamily, City Interest in Michaels Development, Square 769N, Capper Carrollsburg Venture, LLC, Texas and Minnesota, MED Developers, LLC, and West End Square 50, East Bank Incorporated. Give it up for all these great partners in this. Congratulations, everybody. You were selected as one of the recipients because you understand the vision of the city, the needs of the residents who live here, and the importance of having a community comprised of people of various incomes, backgrounds, and cultures. In order to build cohesive neighborhoods, in addition to affordable housing, you need to build and encourage healthy, diverse, and inclusive neighborhoods. And that includes resourceful community centers, reliable daycare centers, plentiful businesses, and a cooperative and collaborative spirit in the neighborhoods. It is the mission of the mayor, the deputy mayor, the Department of Housing and Community Development to revitalize underserved neighborhoods throughout the district. To meet this charge, we leverage the support of our community-based organizations, most commonly known as CBOs, who provide facade improvement and small business technical assistance to area businesses and housing counseling to our city residents. We are pleased to say that we approved 24 grants to a total of 20 CBOs, yielding $7.2 million, which is $1 million up from last year's. The individual grants range from $30,000 to $1.3 million. 4 grants were made to facilitate facade improvements, 10 grants for housing counseling services, 10 grants to provide housing business assistance. In your packets and on the signage, you will see a list of the 20 CBOs have been awarded. I'd like them to now stand and be recognized. Let me get my list here. To Small Business Assistant, Arch Development Corporation, Anacostia Economic Development Corporation, Latino Economic Development Center, Greater Washington Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Washington Area Community Investment Fund, the Deanwood Heights Main Streets, the Emory Beacon of Light, DC Fashion Foundation, Friends of Rhode Island Avenue, Congress Heights Training and Development Center. Thank you for your work on the business assistance, on the facade improvements, Barracks Row Main Street, Anacostia Economic Development Corporation, Friends of Rhode Island Avenue, the Deanwood Heights Main Streets, and for housing services, Housing Counseling Services, Latino Economic Development Center, MANA, University Legal Services, ARP Legal Counsel for the Elderly, MICASA, Greater Washington Urban League, Central American Resource Center, Marshall Heights Community Development Organization, and Lydia's House. Give it up for all our community-based organizations. All right, that concludes the awards. I want to thank and recognize all of our partners. The awards are just the beginning. As you know, the hard work now begins. We need to take this valuable resource that has been bequested to all of us and to convert it into housing opportunity for those that need it most in districts and better and healthy neighborhoods for us all. God bless you. Thank you for being here.
I wish we could find a DHC director with more energy and enthusiasm. Isn't it great to see somebody who has that kind of investment in what they do every day? And I think the people who are here today know that DHCD is not an agency that's a piece of cake. It really is a tough agency, and Michael and the team working with him have done an extraordinary job of moving the agency forward. And Jeff, I want to thank you, as a deputy mayor also for helping to move forward the progress we've seen at DHCD. There's an undergirding principle in all of this that we've tried to use across everything we've done, and that is collaboration. Our deputy mayors are the deputy mayors of collaboration. And that is to bring agencies together to get things done. I could cite innumerable examples of that, and this is yet another example where you have, half a dozen agencies that are working together to be able to create more housing for people to afford to live in the District of Columbia. One of the other, just quickly, points I will make is we are continuing to work hard on housing for families who are homeless in the city. And that is a hugely collaborative effort at this stage. It's an enormously difficult, maybe the most difficult thing that we have before us in the District of Columbia, and we are making progress. We've literally moved hundreds of families out of DC General, and we now have the draft of a plan which will be released next week on how we're going to move to close down DC General. And obviously that relates to affordable housing, because some of the families who are homeless because they couldn't afford to live anymore where they had lived previously. It's more complicated than that in many instances, but that certainly is one of the factors. In any event, from the media, you have any questions on the awards today? The awards by, Aaron?
It looks like of the affordable housing production, the overwhelming majority is concentrated above 30% of AMI. Given you're talking about the need to house all these homeless families and the trouble we had last winter, the expectation that there will be even more this winter seeking shelter, do you worry that there's not enough affordable housing in the 0 to 30 AMI range?
Well, let me let Michael speak to that. We could always use more, more housing in the 30% range. Obviously, that requires the further down you go, the deeper the subsidy has to be in order to be able to accommodate that housing. But we hope, with the additional money that we have this year, you heard the awards. What was it? A total of, I don't know, what is it? The two together, 87 plus. Was that 200? Yeah. So when you start to do the math, there's still more money that will allow for awards, and we'll do the best job we can, Aaron, of awarding grants at the lower levels of AMI because that is where the needs are the greatest. Recognizing that, again, not to be redundant, but the lower you go in terms of AMI, the deeper the subsidy has to be in order to be able to create that kind of housing. You know, and housing is just one piece of it. It's just it's an enormous piece of it, but it's also getting people to a point where their own wherewithal has been improved, too. That's why the work that's been done with our TANF program is so important, too, to get people where their earning capacity has been improved and increased. So housing is a piece of it, but so are the other things like getting people to be able to have earning power above where they are now.
Thank you. The question of the 30% commitment, well, obviously we actually have a legislative requirement to have 40% of the Housing Protection Trust Fund dollars meet that target area, and we are committed to meeting the legislative requirement. What I think bodes well for the future is that we are now, there's been a restructure of the Interagency Council on Homelessness, and they're targeting around particularly that the permanent supported housing and the needs of the chronically homeless. We're now having a finer recognition of what the needs are and the resources needed to respond to that. The other thing that I think bodes well is that there was a good, healthy response to the 5% requirement that came in for this particular time. It was the first time we did that. And a recognition also that a lot of these things are, the beauty of a mixed finance deal is in a higher market area or buildings that are more successful, there's an opportunity for the developer to reach down to take care of the needs of the lower in a real mixed financing model. And I think we're working closer with developers right now to push that modeling.
I already answered that. Are you with the media? Okay, well, we're dealing with media questions right now. Any of you all have any other questions from the media? Mike?
Mr. Mayor, as you probably know, there's a bill in front of the D.C. Council right now that would put new requirements in terms of creating affordable housing on district land. And your letter to the council yesterday, you had some concerns with that. Why is it a bad idea to put these targets on the dispositions of city-owned land that the district controls and controls how it's developed? Why are we against putting targets on it?
Hi, Mike. Thanks. I think that what we're seeing here is a commitment from the mayor to affordable housing. I think we all understand that. I think that we have expressed our concerns to council in a hearing, and there's a few, but I think the basic issue is a one-size-fits-all program is in some cases going to bring with it unintended consequences, and some of those unintended consequences could be additional subsidy. It could be the fact that less housing actually gets produced based on the affordability levels, and so we are working with council now to see if we can make some adjustments within the next few weeks to address some of those concerns that we've expressed in the past.
What adjustments would make a difference in the flexibility?
One would be how waivers would be granted, for instance. You know, one of the issues here is that unless your project is in a downtown, very valuable area, the land value itself, in many cases, will not cover the cost of the affordable housing that's being requested, and so there might be actual dollars that need to fund that gap. So that's one issue. The other issue is, you know, one of the things we like to do with the value of the land that we dispose of is to bring other community benefits besides just affordable housing. And so by limiting this or by being so stringent with the affordable housing requirement may actually run into conflicts with what the community actually wants for the project.
Mr. Mayor, do you have anything you want to add to that? I mean, you know, this is something that's not necessarily going to affect you, but future mayors. I mean, you have you were on the council, and now you're at the executive. Do you have anything generally to say about these laws that the council tend to pass that want to bind the mayor's hands, or those? Since you've seen both sides of those things.
Well, as a mayor, obviously, I would not be ecstatic about having legislation that ties the ability of the executive to function as a general proposition, Mike. And, you know, having been in this job now for over 3 years and 9 months, I realize the huge importance of being able to have flexibility to get things done. there's nothing, the council's role is twofold essentially, and that is to pass laws and then to conduct oversight. We wind up oftentimes with a lot of laws in the city that are very, constraining and very restrictive, and I don't know that the citizens necessarily benefit from some of the legislation that's enacted.
Is there something you could go back and you could tell 2006 Vince Gray about being, counsel, a particular piece of legislation that, may have seemed right at the time, but in your experience as mayor has turned out, maybe there's another aspect to it?
No, I thought Vince Gray on the council was one of the most brilliant legislators we ever had in the District of Columbia. And that's 2006 through 2010, Mike. Any other question, Aaron?
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm told by an affordable housing advocate who's better at stuff than I am that $142 million is actually more than has been allotted to the trust fund in the budget. Where does that 142 actually come from?
Well, the basis of it comes from the deed and recordation tax fee that's embedded in the bulk of it. The remainder comes from the unprecedented commitment of our mayor to take funding from the overall city reserves and commit it to this effort.
But is all 142 already accounted for, or does some of that need to be allocated?
Oh no, it's in the pocket. Checks in the mail.
I was going to mention, hold on one second, you're next. I was going to mention other folks, Jeff Miller, who is up here, Deputy Mayor, our Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services, B.B. Otero. And I'm mentioning these folks because they've all worked together to be able to make this happen. Michael Kelly, who you heard from, Maria Day Marshall, who is the Interim Director for the Housing Finance Agency, Adrian Todman, I don't think she's here today, but the Housing Authority has played an integral role in this. Steve Barron, who I mentioned, Deborah Carroll, who is our DHS Director, Dr. Garcia, who is our Health Director, I guess plays a role in the HOPWA program, for example. And then, of course, our Director of the Department of General Services, Brian Hanlon. That's 9 different agencies that have pooled their expertise and their resources in order to make this happen. And I think, frankly, if the city continues in this way in the future, it will really make much more efficient use of the resources that we have available to us. Yes.
John Muller, Capital Community News. The gentleman outside had mentioned why this particular site. This is a site that George Curtis and the Curtis family has owned for generations, going back to the late 1890s when the Curtis brothers first got involved in Washington. So why is this particular site special, and why does this represent possibly like a new day in Anacostia in terms of the Curtis family has held on to this land for a long, long time, and now they're seeing dividends?
Well, I'll mention again the things I mentioned earlier because it does provide an opportunity to create new housing, new retail, new office, and a mixed-use development. And again, I mentioned too that this will provide housing for teachers, many of whom don't live in the city now because the affordability of housing in the city is a tremendous challenge. So that's, in essence, I'm being redundant in part, but that's in essence why we're here today. Michael.
Well, this is really a remarkable site. I'm glad that the mayor chose the press conference to be here because it does represent the rebirth and renaissance of the Anacostia neighborhood, which is already in motion. As you can see, the 4 Points has the project right there. We've got Big K is on the books through a historical review. Bus Boys and Poets is down the street. We've got around the corner, we've got a new 7-Eleven. It's one of the most highest grossing 7-Elevens. It used to be like a really beat up old market. Through the facade program, you have millions of dollars of DACD funds have gone into helping business facades and business development. We've got Arch and Anacostia Economic Development doing their thing right here. This is a really remarkable area right now, and I believe that this is really, it's beautiful that we're having this event here today because I think we can all look back a year from now and watch the kind of progress that we're going to continue to make here in reinvesting in this wonderful neighborhood.
All right. That's it then on the, you got another one?
Sorry. But under construction, I see Skyland Town Center, 143 units for Ward 7. Can you give any update on housing and Walmart coming to Skyland?
The demolition is slated to start October 15th, right? We're continuing to work on the lease, with Walmart. I think a lot of progress has been made. It has not been signed yet, but we have every reason to think it will be signed, but it has not been signed yet. The demolition permits have been issued, and mobilization is taking place, and the demolition will start on October 15th. And I'm very proud that after all these years, it is actually getting done.
Jeff, talk about what the problem with the deal is with the lease. Why is the lease taking so long?
What, Walmart deal?
Yeah.
Nah, bad idea. When the deal is done, Mike, we'll announce it, okay? Not a good idea to discuss negotiations in a session like this. Okay. For those who were here for the housing issues, which is probably about 98.5% of the people who are in the audience today, you can stay if you like, but we're finished with that part of the program. Thank you all very much. As you leave, I want to mention Bob Pullman, who has been such an extraordinary advocate here. Bob is retiring. I don't think Bob ever will retire, but that's what he officially is doing, is retiring. And what a great job he has done with the organization that he has had, a CNHED. Thank you, Bob, for all the work that you've done. Thank you all. First of all, I think it's wonderful that he has endorsed Muriel Bowser. I'm glad to see the president is connecting with what goes on here locally, because the president obviously lives in the District of Columbia. And no, I have not updated my plans on anything at this point.
It's wonderful for Barack Obama to endorse Muriel Bowser, but you're not endorsing Muriel Bowser.
I didn't say that. You asked me had I updated my plans, and I said no.
Trying to reconcile those two statements.
I'm just trying to answer your question, Mike. Anything further, guys?
Was a baseball game last night, Mr. Mayor?
There certainly was, wasn't it? Did you watch it?
I did.
Yeah, it was depressing, wasn't it? It truly had a wild finish.
As an armchair baseball, not an armchair baseball player, the baseball player yourself, moments that you think may have been handled differently, managerially?
Well, I'm not going to second guess Matt Williams, because this man managed the team to 96 victories, the most in the National League. So I'm not going to do that, and I'm sure every one of us can find something that we wish had been different. I don't know what happened to Barrett, with the wild pitch that, had the winning run score, and then the wild pitch that actually got out Buster Posey at the plate, an intentional walk effort, and he threw it over the catcher's head. I'd never seen that before in baseball, and I'm really sorry for the Nationals, because I think they had an extraordinary season. They've got an extraordinary team, and they're going to be good for a long time, Mike. Aaron?
On the school boundary policies, the two leading mayoral candidates both say they want to redo or at least rework some of your proposal. How confident are you that what you put in place is going to stick?
I can't answer that question, of course, but I'm confident in the work that went into it, the number of people who were involved in it, the leadership that was provided by Deputy Mayor Abigail Smith, the involvement of so many people across the city. And as I looked at it, and as many people looked at it at the end of the day, I think there was a lot of concurrence with what the approach that had been taken. I think the other thing too is, and we've said this before, that had we not acted right before the school year started, you would have had to wait another year in order to be able to address the boundary issues, which haven't been addressed since 1968. So I think it is an excellent product. And if either of or both of the candidates have ideas on this, I've said before, we'd welcome those ideas, and then whichever one of them prevails will have an opportunity to tweak it themselves. I just don't think that there's likely to be a major overhaul of what has been done. If it is, and it makes it better, then the people of the city will benefit from it.
If the council, while you're still in office, passes legislation to delay the implementation, would you veto that?
I don't know. I'd rather not be engaged in hypotheticals at this stage.
One more, Mr. Barrett. So today, a group of cab drivers is planning a protest similar to ones they've done in the past, where they're going to sort of barricade city streets, or at least sort of try and disrupt traffic because they're unhappy with the ride-sharing bill that the council passed or gave an initial approval to yesterday. Your administration also has concerns with that bill. Can you sort of describe what your attitude and position is on these changes, allowing these new services like Uber and Lyft to come in, and what's your reaction to the cab drivers reacting this way and tying up traffic?
Well, first of all, we've had innumerable protests among cab drivers in the past. I mean, it's a free country. It's a city that we would never seek to constrain people in exercising their constitutional rights, especially in a city that is uniquely disenfranchised as we are, that doesn't get the opportunity to vote, doesn't get the opportunity to have representation in the Congress, can't control our own budget, can't control the outcome of our own laws. So, it's a democratic process that I wish fully would come to the District of Columbia. So I wish them the best in terms of their protest. I hope for practical reasons they don't hold up the traffic too long. I will say this, Mike, and I think it's quite apparent. We've made enormous progress in our taxi cab industry in this city. We have about 40% now, maybe more, of our taxi cabs that have converted to the uniform color scheme. We have the cars themselves are a lot better than what they used to be when they were the butt of a lot of jokes here in the city. The fact that we have new domes, which make them so easily seen now. We have credit card readers. The taxi cab industry is very much a part of the hospitality industry in the city. People may form an indelible impression based on the experience that they have with a taxi cab here in the city. So I want to underscore the improvements that have been made. There are Uber and others that have come along. They bring an element of competition that hopefully will, improve cars for hire, the whole industry in the city over time. But again, looking at the taxi cab industry and the work that's been done by the Taxi Cab Commission, I'm really very proud of what they've done. There will continue to be issues, with the cars for hire industry in the city, and we'll work those through. But fundamentally, I think we've made enormous improvement. Thank you all very much.